Justin Gaethe, he said, and stay with me here, Justin Gaethje, who's getting ready to fight Poirier in a main event for a title, BMF, said, if I beat Poirier and Beneil Dariush loses, I will be fighting Islam for the championship. That sounds right to me. I have never bought into the idea. Guys, I have never given Charles Oliveira a fair shake. Charles Oliveira has been nothing but a gentleman to me. I wanted to come out and wrestle a submission underground. He was responsive. He was in. This is a good guy. I don't mean to be hard on him. I don't. I'm trying to just kind of look at it and break it down and give my best guess. Charles Oliveira is a wildly talented man. Just an excellent fighter. I don't believe, and I never have, that Oliveira versus Dariush, which, by the way, I'm still not convinced is even going to take place, was a number one contenders fight, ever. I'm not, and I can't find it. I don't mind being wrong. It's a Google search, but I did it. I couldn't find it. I know that it said if Benny wins, Benny fights for the belt. But so many times when we get in a situation like that, which is often, more often than not, as a matter of fact, more often than not, we will have a fight that if so-and-so wins, far more often than we have a number one contenders fight, whoever wins between these two is not as accurate historically in our sport as here's a fight and if this guy shines, right? And I've never been convinced it's a number one contenders fight, and I've never been convinced that somebody's in a rush to get Charles back in there. Now, Charles was a skilled champion. He was a hard-working champion. That means he went out, he did his media, he did his press. He was a loved champion. He wasn't the most dependable. When you have a champion who has been beat by the scale more times than he has by opponents in a recent period of time, it puts you in a position. It puts you in a real tough position. It is a cardinal sin in our sport to not make weight. Period. Okay? Now, if you go into a main event, or you go into a title fight, or you go into a main event title fight and not make it, it's exponential. It's a big deal. It really is a big deal. Is that my problem with him subconsciously? I don't know. Is it? Maybe, because it turned out he could draw. And I didn't like what Charles did from a marketing standpoint. I had a problem with it. To have brown hair today and have blonde hair tomorrow, right? When this is the image, you're trying to get your face, you're trying to get recognized. Chuck Liddell, for a period of time, was the most recognized MMA fighter in the world. He might still be, as a matter of fact. Rampage, when he wore the chain, was right behind him. I'm offering an example. Right? Tito had bleached his hair, but he had to keep it that way because he was so recognizable. These are great things. It was a hard time. It was the one down point on Charles. People just didn't recognize him, right? So he got the brown hair, then he comes out with the blonde hair. He's got no glass, he got contacts, and then he's got the big heavy glasses. I mean, this guy was like Clark. You see two of them. There's some guy fighting in the cage called Charles Oliveira, but there's a different guy here at a press conference. He's got a name taken from that says Charles Oliveira. It's not the same guy, but they're saying it is, right? He just got a little confusing. I didn't love some of these things. Turns out it worked. He drew. We are told that Oliveira versus Gaethje was the biggest pay-per-view of the year. And at the time we are told that, just to put in perspective for you, Ciryl Gane and Francis had already happened. Ciryl Gane and Francis, the single greatest storyline in the history of the heavyweight division. There has never been a better story than this one. It had already happened, and we were told that Gaethje and Oliveira did even better. So I bring that to you because if that evidence is true, to hell with what I said about the color of his hair or his glasses, to hell with the scale and all of it. You get a guy like that right back in there. And there was a story that came out. There was a story from, it was Lima. Lima told Charles's trainer that after Volkanovski and Islam faced off, right? So that means Islam fought Charles. Islam becomes a champion of the world. Volk comes in and they have their face-off. After that face-off, Lima claims, nobody's ever supported this claim, but Lima's never come out and swerved us, right? I mean, this is a tough one. Did this happen? Is there a misunderstanding? Are we lost in translation? Lima claims that Oliveira was offered the rematch. This is after Volk and Islam are face-to-face, and Cormier's putting this whole thing together. The GOAT versus the heir apparent. I mean, it was such an interesting, and it was so organic. It was a wonderful moment. It was a wonderful marketing moment. It was a treat to get to see that. Right, you buy the pay-per-view, you put your time in, you got your outcome, you're all done, right? We're all square here for my money and my time. No, this was a treat. This was an encore. And in spite of that, in spite of this wonderful thing, which they packaged up and used and went to produce a top 5 all-time selling event according to a press release. And they almost ran it all back to put Charles in there, according to Lima. So both things can't be accurate, right? Me saying that nobody's looking to book Charles. Justin Gaethje saying, if Charles wins and I go in, to hell with the fact that we went head-to-head and it was non-competitive in his favor. To hell with it. I go in. You know what? I think Gaethje's right. I think he's right. And you start to have a real good game there, right? I mean, there's a lot of politics in this sport, too. There's a lot of interworkings there. Guys could start looking out for each other, but I don't think that Gaethje was making a prediction. I just don't. It's not how Gaethje talks. I don't think Gaethje was selling anything. I just don't. It's not how he talks. I mean, within the same press day, he put down the BMF title that he's getting ready to fight for, right? I mean, he's not the guy that just goes out and builds things. I don't think he was making a prediction at all. I think he revealed some information to us. And whether he was supposed to reveal that or not, I think that's what happened. And it sounds right. And if it is right for Gaethje, what difference would it be if it was Poirier? I mean, by the math, by the evidence and the equation that we're putting forward, what difference would it be? And that's in the event that Benny doesn't win. So I just think when you're in those spots, right? If you're a sandhagging, you don't know what any of this means, and if you do, you don't know what in the hell to do with it. And you won't even pick up the phone and ask somebody that does know. If you're sandhagging. And there's a chance that Oliveira's a sandhagging. I mean, these things are going into the media, and these things are being discussed in your division that affect you, and they affect your career directly. And you don't fight back and put them out when you think you got some kind of upper hand. It's a weird thing, man. It's a fight. It's all a fight. It's a fight for headlines. Right now, in my mind, if Gaethje beats Poirier, Gaethje's going in for the strap as long as Oliveira wins. Could you imagine that? Generally, I would say as long as he loses. No, as long as he wins. He wins, he loses. If Oliveira wins, Gaethje goes for the belt. I mean, do you understand this? And in my mind, that's right. My one piece of evidence is a principal within the division who I would expect to know, considering he's a former champion, he's getting a championship shot again, said it. Why would I not believe that? That seems like really good evidence to me. And if I was to compare that with what I have by Charles, and here's what Charles said. Charles had, you guys hear Charles' rebuke? Charles reads this getting taken away with him. He reads that he just got demoted through the press by a guy that he stomped out in his own hometown. You know what Charles said about it?